ਬਾਰੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੀ ਮੋਸਟ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟਲੀ ਕਿਉਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਥੇ ਨਿਊਜ਼ੀਲੈਂਡ 'ਚ ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਮੁਲਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੋਟ ਪਾਉਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੈ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਟਾਈਮਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮਸ ਨੇ। ਤਾਂ ਲਓ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਇਹ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਕਰਨ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ। ਸੋ welcome to Radio Spice. We are live on Facebook, and Alistair and Rachel, welcome to Radio Spice.
Hello, good to see you. Good to be here. Thank you so much.
Indeed. And I guess looking at your profiles, indeed, you've been advocating for, the citizens' rights within the Entrust for a very long time. But most importantly, I would like to, I guess, give you the opportunity to introduce yourself to the listeners and also tell us about your journeys. So starting from yourself, Rachel, you have 2 minutes.
We talk too much.
Yeah.
So my name is Rachel Langton, and I've just been on Entrust for this year.
Yep.
So my background is, so I have a background in corporate law as a barrister and solicitor.
Yep.
And now I'm in people and change management.
Yep.
But I've been on the local board for, I was on the local board for 9 years on Albert Eden in Auckland City. So that was a wonderful opportunity, and it has just been an absolute delight to be part of Entrust and to serve on the trust. I have learned a lot, and I'm learning a lot every day, and it is such an honour to be able to give back and be part of the team.
Yeah, and I'm Alistair Bell. Look, this is the least exciting election in the minds of some, but I'm really excited about it because even though very few people know about Entrust, Entrust does some really good things. It's not widely recognised, but perhaps it should be. And actually this election is an opportunity for a whole lot of people to get to know what Entrust does, because a lot of it is really good for Auckland. And what does it? In terms of me, I've been in Auckland for a long, long time. We were just talking about a trip I did to India a few years ago, and the two things I remember there in particular is going to Amritsar, firstly, and secondly, every young Indian, little kids, that would come up to me and say, hey, what's your name? My answer, of course, was Richard Hadley. And they got that straight away.
Absolutely. Some of the iconic names, and of course, our mountaineer, he is indeed a household name. So $350. I mean, I'm going to, a lot of us would have got the emails. I got mine 2 days ago. And it certainly gives you a smile that in times like these, that somebody without asking has said, you know what, we're going to give you $350. And it's going to go directly into your account. But before we talk about the dividend side of it, briefly, if you guys could tell us what actually Victor and Entrust, who are the majority shareholders of Victor, what do they do?
Do you want me to start just outlining Entrust?
Sure. Yes.
So Entrust is one of the largest public trusts in New Zealand, and owns 75.1% of the shareholding of Victor. And Victor is the lines company, so it doesn't generate power, it doesn't retail the power, but it is the lines company where power's moved around.
Yes.
And so Entrust is very much controlled by a public trust deed, and what we can do on Entrust is largely governed by that. And our main responsibility is to give that dividend back to Aucklanders every year. And so we work hard to make sure that, one, there's a security of supply in the lines in Auckland. So when there's a big flood or whatever else is going on, we make sure that those lines get up quickly as part of Victor. So we overlook them and we oversee them as shareholders, but also as Entrust, we give that dividend out when Victor pays us that dividend. Now, Alistair's actually as a director of Vector as well. He's a lot. He's got lots of interesting things to say.
No pressure.
And so that combination between Vector and Entrust is really the essence of what we're talking about. As Rachel says, Entrust is a consumer trust. So its beneficiaries, the people who really make up the members of the trust, are 365,000 Aucklanders. Typically in the Entrust district, that's a bit complicated, but it's really just central, east and south Auckland. It's all south of the bridge. And that's just historical reasons. And so this trust is part of something that happened 30 years ago or 40 years ago, and that was the restructuring of the electricity sector in New Zealand. And there's lots of these trusts throughout the country. So Auckland's not unique in having a consumer trust that owns the lines company. Now, why is all this important? It's important because these lines companies actually only need one set of lines in each town, and you can't have them competing. That's not the way lines companies work. So they're a monopoly. We know what happens to monopolies. They crank up their prices if they're allowed to. So there's two parts to this. One is that lines companies are regulated by the Commerce Commission. Now that's quite complicated, very complicated, and we have a big department within Vector who follows all the rules and regulations that are put down by the Commerce Commission. But the other part is if there is a fair bit of charging going on through a consumer trust, the people who are the beneficiaries of the trust are also the consumers, and so they get some money back every year. Our challenge is to make that as big as possible, but we also have to counter or balance that with the amount of investment that Vector, as the lines company, needs to do every year and every other year, because storms like Gabrielle come along, and another 20 million odd had to be spent just to sort out the problems of resilience as a starting point.
Yep, carry on. Elsa, I'm just looking at the site, and I can see your lovely face there as part of the trustees, and also Denise Lee. And there is the taxation petition, and that was to help. What was that? Because clearly, there is a lot Aucklanders miss out on. And do you want to just speak to that?
Yeah, look, and it's not only Aucklanders, it's actually everywhere, but we ran the argument.
Yes.
And actually we do Entrust. We are submitting to government, to MB, to the Commerce Commission, to the Electricity Authority frequently throughout the year on a whole lot of issues, substantially around vulnerable energy consumers, to make sure that their vulnerability, either through energy poverty or other issues like having to have health machinery in their homes, and if there was an outage, have to make sure that they don't lose that machinery just because the power went out. So there's quite an amount of submissions that go on. This particular one was quite interesting, though, around taxation. We had a good look at this and said that the average beneficiary in Auckland has a marginal tax rate of 17%, but Entrust gets taxed as a trust at 33%. So it seems unfair that the government is taking, or the IRD is taking extra money over and above what would normally happen. And part of the challenge is that it's tricky to sort of return your dividend through your tax return. And so we've gone to Parliament and said, you can make this easier on the world and a lot fairer. And so this is actually in process at the moment, and a select committee who looks into petitions is looking in the last few weeks at the point that we're making. And hey, let's hope that they see the light the way we do.
Indeed. Rachel, in terms of, we spoke about the Entrust in terms of what they manage. So, it's a key asset of 75.1% shareholding in Vector. And, there is a lot of discussion of the companies charging, this is the final retailers, customers a lot more at the moment what they would expect. I guess just want clarity, that doesn't really come into the trust jurisdiction, does it?
No. So, but I mean, electricity costs at the moment are astronomical.
Yes.
It's so high, and the average family are struggling out there.
Yes.
And so it is a huge issue, and that we is very much at the forefront of our mind.
Yes.
Unfortunately, in Entrust, because we're a 75.1% shareholder in Vector, which is just the lines company and not a retailer and not the people who make the electricity, then we don't have a lot of impact over what electricity price does come to people in Auckland and what they're charged. However, we do work very hard to make sure then that what we do give back to Aucklanders, what we can give back to Aucklanders. So we make sure that that dividend that comes back every year is as high as possible. So when that $350 comes, we make sure we advocate as hard as possible to make sure that we get something which we can get from Vector, which keeps them sustainable and a strong, solid company in and of itself as a publicly listed company, but then also we give back to Aucklanders as much as we can, because we do know how important that is at this time of year. We also work, as Alistair was saying before, as an advocate. So politically, we do lots of submissions, and we do see ourselves as a voice for everyday Aucklanders. And so we work very hard to ensure that politically that Aucklanders are being charged what they should be being charged, and trying to get those costs down wherever possible. So we are very much aware of how much Aucklanders are paying. I personally am very aware of how much my family's paying, and it is tough.
It is tough. I mean, especially in a working class electorate where we are, transmitting from, that really takes a huge chunk out of the people's pays. So ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਕਿ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਇੰਟਰਸਟ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਅਸਲ ਰੋਲ ਕੀ ਹੈ, ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟਲੀ ਉਹ ਮੇਕ ਸ਼ੋਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਵੈਕਟਰ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਦਾ ਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਫਾਈਨਲ ਰੀਟੇਲਰਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਸੰਬੰਧ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਵਧੀਆ ਰਹਿ ਸਕਦਾ, ਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਸਟਮਰ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਉਹ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਕਾਰਜਕਾਰ ਹੋ ਨਿਬੜਦੇ. Since 1922, Entrust has been, I like the word guardianship of Vector.
I wasn't there at the start, by the way.
I would have. and indeed, I guess the you spoke about how the generators right to the transmission coming in to the line company, and eventually the retailers who buy the electricity off them, and then we are the final one who basically get to use that and pay the bill accordingly as such. So now I guess the most important question, there are other candidates out there as well. So I just want to ask you two, why should our viewers, listeners should vote for you in the coming elections?
Yeah, look, and that's the question of the election. We think that the experience that we've got and the team that we've got can keep delivering for people who are the beneficiaries of Entrust, who are also the consumers of energy in Auckland. What you've seen over a number of years is a consistency. You've got more money as a dividend. That's the second highest dividend in the last 10 years. The other fantastic thing this year is that there is 45,000 more households who are receiving that dividend. So there's a whole lot of Aucklanders, but in particular new Aucklanders who haven't been here long, as part of the growth of Auckland. And part of the growing Auckland is a real issue for an infrastructure company like Vector, because they have to provide more and more and more of this infill housing. You can just imagine the number of extra connections that are required. As well as that, the whole system then needs to be increased to be able to cope with greater capacity. And so that 45,000 extra consumers who are receiving the dividend this year are the recipient of the work that Entrust does. The other point I'd make is that we are really careful, and we push Vector hard on this, and that is that every time someone has a bright idea to spend capital money, firstly, Vector has to borrow it. So it goes onto the debt market and borrows substantial amounts to fund its operations. And secondly, at some time or other, all that cost will come back into the price that Vector has to charge its consumers, which is all of us. And what we know is that there is a fair number of people who are struggling with their power bill right now. Every little bit more that gets added into the price of the network, which gets added into their retailer charges for the volume of electricity that they use, all causes a whole lot more grief around the kitchen table. And so to socialise the cost of investment is often unfair, because that gets it spread across all users instead of just the ones who are going to benefit from a particular piece of technology or something else that comes along. So, your EV user, and we've now got 48,000 EVs in Auckland, it's not fair that everyone should pay for the smart chargers that they need in their homes. So we're really aware that if we spread the cost over everyone, there's people who can't afford their power now, who will end up paying for other people's advantage.
Well, and part of our team, so we're part of CNR, which is Communities and Residents. 4 out of 5 of our team are current Entrust trustees. So we're proven and we're experienced. We know what we're doing. And also, it's the only way to protect that annual dividend. That $350 that goes into families' pockets is so important. At the moment, the other teams are proposing batteries in every home, solar panels on all housing roofs, and all of those things are wonderful ideas, but that will increase the cost and it will lower that dividend. And so we already do have a number of green initiatives that are coming through Vector, which are great, but they're sustainable initiatives that don't cost average Aucklanders too much money. And so by 2030, there's a number of great achievables, and they've had a 19% reduction in carbon emissions over the last 3 years, which is great. But all of it must be done in a sustainable way that is not going to cost Aucklanders great deals of money. So at the moment, they're proposing to put batteries and solar panels on every house, and that would just wipe out that dividend. So the only way to protect that dividend is to vote for CNR, Communities and Residents. So our team of 5, who's Denise Lee, Paul Hutchinson, Alistair Bell, myself, Rachel Langton, and Angus Ogilvie. So the voting papers will be being posted from the 10th of October. So they come, every house that has an electricity account will get a voting paper in their mail from the 10th of October. Then you have around about 1 week to post that back or to drop it into a few or a select few Woolworths stores. So I strongly, if you want to keep that dividend in your homes every year, I strongly suggest that you go out and vote for our team and the whole team of 5 that we are, the CNR Communities and Residents team.
Indeed. So the most important message out of that it's a postal process. The election, you are receiving it by post and you're sending it, preferably by post. So ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੱਲ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ 10 ਅਕਤੂਬਰ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਇਹ ਵੋਟਾਂ ਦੇ ਪੇਪਰ ਆ ਜਾਣੇ ਆ ਸੋ ਹੁਣ ਆਪਾਂ ਫਰਿੱਜਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਉਹ ਪੈ ਨਾ ਰਹਿ ਜਾਣ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਸੋ ਲੈਟਸ ਮੇਕ ਸ਼ੋਰ ਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਅੱਜ ਆਏ ਆ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ ਡਿਵੀਡੈਂਡ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਲਈ ਬਚਤ ਹੋਵੇ ਇਹ ਇੱਕ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਐਲਿਸਟਰ ਬੈਲ ਤੇ ਰੇਚਲ ਲੈਂਗਟਨ ਜੋ ਕਿ CNR ਦੀ ਟੀਮ ਮੈਂਬਰਾਂ ਨੇ ਡਨੀਸ ਲਈ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਤੇ ਬਾਕੀ 20 ਮੈਂਬਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਲੜਨੇ ਸੋ ਪੰਜਾਂ ਦੀ ਟੀਮ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਾਮਯਾਬ ਬਣਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ ਲਾਸਟ ਵਰਡ from you two.
This has been a great opportunity. Just remember, there's only one vote per house.
Yep.
Not everyone gets a vote. It's just one vote per house. It's really one vote per connection to the Vector network. That's how it works. So it is really important that families sit around the table and work out, and hopefully they will vote for us, the CNR Communities and Residents team.
Yes. Hey, I just want to say thank you so much for inviting us on today. It is an absolute delight to be able to talk to talk to the community and get to know a little bit more about Radio Spice and the team. But yes, we just really appreciate your vote. Communities and Residents, CNR, and that post should be in your post box from the 10th of October.
So Entrust the team member candidates Alistair Bell and Rachel Langton ਹੁਣਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੁਣੇ ਸੀ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ you can watch this interview again it will be broadcasted tonight and tomorrow morning so you are able to watch it again any feedback ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਦੇ ਥੱਲੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੇ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ thank you for watching ਅਸੀਂ offline ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ and then there's going to be another interview very shortly